It's too much sitting.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة المتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أما بعد. My beloved brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To our viewers who are not from our faith, I say good evening. Yahdikumullah, may God's guidance be with you. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to our Masjid Al-Wali Chai Chat. And we have our Chai tea mug. And I have tonight as my guests, very special guests tonight, inshallah, for our discussion. I have with me Dr. Bahia Muhammad. Is an associate professor of criminology in the Department of Sociology at Howard University in the District of Columbia, DC. Dr. Muhammad has been voted Professor of the Year for 4 consecutive years and continues to teach radical pedagogy that has been dubbed the Dr. Muhammad Experience, alhamdulillah, and brings hundreds of students from around the world to Howard University to study under her leadership. Dr. Muhammad is very experienced as a celebrity instructor and recently received the largest humanities grant in the history of Howard University of $5 million for a social justice project. Dr. Muhammad's expert research explores the experience among children of incarcerated. Through this work, she has done hundreds of interviews with affected children and parents in the United States, Uganda, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates. Dr. Muhammad received her PhD in criminal justice from Rutgers University School of Criminal Justice in Newark, New Jersey. She is married and she is living with her family, 3 kids and her husband in DC, Washington. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct.
So,
yes,
Dr. Muhammad, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
Alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure having you and my program tonight, Masjid Al-Wali Chai Chat. And as I have discussed with you, that the objective of this program is basically to help our next generation. And when I was thinking about, all of these things that we are talking about, somehow or the other, my thoughts went on you because I have known you for many years when you were in New Jersey, and had the pleasure of, doing some things and some work with you. And I says, why not having Dr. Muhammad to share some of her experience in her field? To be very clear, Dr. Bahia, I have known you for many years, and I am very much aware of your struggle going through to reach where you are today. So today I want us to share with our youngsters. And my first question to you, how were you able really to, with all the struggle that you have gone through, to attain your PhD and at the same time to maintain your Islamic identity?
Shukran for this question. Alhamdulillah, it has been truly a blessing to be able to make it. For me, the first thing that I always put forward is prayer. Always prayer. No matter what I was faced with on all of the different levels of, going into moving from Teaneck, New Jersey into East Orange, New Jersey, dealing with the separation of my parents during the turmoil of being one of 9 children, raised in a household with only my mother at a certain period of time. It was very, very difficult during that time to lose sight on, the light at the end of the tunnel. But constantly there was always this comfortability around prayer and Islam, being able to make my 5 prayers, being able to make du'as, being able to fast every month during Ramadan. So in the midst of struggling to be able to keep food in the house, being able to reflect during the month of Ramadan that there are many individuals around the world who deal with that reality was one of the things that helped me maintain and having a strong village. I have, it's 9 of us, 6 girls and 3 boys. And we've always been close as siblings. My sisters helped me with my college applications. They sat me down and helped me with financial aid. My mother drove all the way down the Parkway from East Orange all the way to New Brunswick to drop me off at college and to move me in, and making sure that I had my eye on my studies and maintain that. Going to college as a Muslim, a young Muslim, is a very, very difficult thing because so many people want to see your hair. So many individuals want to invite you to different events and different things that are going on, and you have to decide what your experience in college is going to be like. If you're going to focus on your books, are you going to engage in different sororities and fraternities? What does this mean for you? And one of the things that I found immediately is when you go away to college and you're living on campus, there's nobody there that you answer to in terms of your parents. And so your upbringing is more important than ever. And I've seen so many individuals that navigate that landscape as an undergraduate, seeing it among the individuals I was going to school with, and now as an instructor, seeing students who, you know, move in and they're with their parents in one way, and as soon as the parents leave the campus, a different way. And there's so many young individuals, sadly, believe that they have to decide between their religion and their religiosity and their education. And I'm an example that you don't. Those two things are not synonymous of one another. In fact, I would argue that the way that I was able to make it was being Muslim, for being able to have a religion where it is a lifestyle. And so anything that I was dealing with, I could pick up the Quran and be able to find an answer, being able to have a village. The Muslim Student Association are on many campuses and have robust programming across the semester and across the years, even offering in the summertime. And so there's always these opportunities to engage in positive endeavors. And those have been the resources that I have utilized in order to help me maintain success. And even as it relates to finances, I remember many times the National Islamic Association, NIA specifically, helped me in providing funding so that I could study abroad and do research abroad. And oftentimes we think that the masjids are the things we need to run away from when we get to these college campuses. And that's where your resources are. The Muslim Ummah in that community are the individuals that you can really, really depend on and rely on. And when you ask, it shall be received. And so for me, that has kind of been my philosophy moving forward. And I've been successful in that.
Alhamdulillah. I mean, as I said, I have known you for many years and I know the struggle. Is there any, because I want you to know that there are a lot of kids, young people are listening to you here right now. What are some of the early struggles that you have gone through in your college life? Because this is what we want to guide our kids, for them to maintain their Islamic identity and to be able to develop the Islamic understanding and connectivity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala simultaneously without giving up one for the other. Is there any specific struggle that you would like to point out to our young people?
Oh, absolutely. There were so many specific struggles. The one that I would start with is being on remedial level everything when I started college. Going to a Title I high school located in East Orange, New Jersey. I had so many trials and tribulations. We didn't bring textbooks home, for example, and studying. It wasn't a private school. A lot of the curriculum in and of itself, I hadn't realized that I was ill prepared entering the college campus. And oftentimes when you go into those spaces, you start remedial level everything. When you talk about a bash to one's self-esteem, it doesn't get any worse than that. I went from high school being prom queen and, on the cheerleading squad and engaging in so many social activities to being in remedial level everything, meaning that I was in classes that I had to take that were not on the college level. And many of the individuals in those classes decided to turn away. They said, I'm not going to be in these classes or engaged in this way. And in fact, many of them ended up dropping out of school. And I remember I was in tears. I had not realized, because of the environment that I was around, that I was not prepared. And then looking around in the classroom, there weren't a lot of minority individuals in those college classrooms. And so I found myself making a decision on, did I want to continue to be myself? Did I want to fit in? I was bashing myself and speaking illy of who I was as an individual. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. And really, it was a sense of trauma. It was a very, very traumatic experience. And as I looked at other students, you start to compare. And it wasn't until I started reading in the Quran the sin of comparison, and you don't compare, that you look at your blessings and you use your blessings, and knowledge is incumbent upon all of us. And therefore, if it meant that I needed to read more, then I go on and I read more, but I was exactly where I needed to be. I started to look at the positivity in that situation. And one of the things that I resonated with early was I was on the college campus. So Allah blessed me to make it there, and it had to be a reason for it. Another thing that I struggled with was wanting to decide to, engage in activities that all of the students were engaging in. Should I still wear my khimar? My parents are not there. There's not individuals around. They're not going to be able to see me. Who is going to be able to judge? They won't know. If I put my khimar back on when I go home on break, then hey, maybe individuals would assume. And that way I didn't have to explain to individuals. I went to school during 9/11. And that was when I really was challenged with making a decision on, should I keep my hijab or not? Because oftentimes individuals on campus were ripping the hijabs off of individuals' heads. They were throwing, rocks at individuals. There were students that decided to drop out. There were students that decided to change their names, with the last name being Muhammad, and knowing that at that time in the United States, that was where we started to get this negative rhetoric around terrorism. And as an undergraduate student at that time, that was very difficult. Individuals looked at me as though I was the individual that allowed for these sort of things to happen in the United States. And on top of that, being a Black individual, so the intersectionality of it all, it plays an entirely different role. And then being a woman. So I had to deal with the reality of being a Black Muslim woman in the midst of September 11th on a college campus. Many individuals that I would engage with in the classroom stopped speaking to me.
Yeah.
They didn't even engage with me or want to speak with me at all. And it seemed as though the Muslims on the campus, it was our fault. And I had to make the decision. Was I going to stay in school? Was I going to continue to go? Back in that time, there was no online, ability to go in and Zoom. You had to go in person. And individuals had to see you, and you would be walking to class alone. You would be walking to and from class alone, and anything could happen in the midst of that. I had to deal with that, reality on campus. And that was a difficult thing. Also, to keep up with your prayer and keep your iman strong. And it just goes on and on. Do you prioritize that over what you're doing in the classroom? And it makes it easy when you make the excuse, oh, I have class, I'll miss this. You have to begin to get to a point where you schedule your classes around your prayer, and it gives you the opportunity to prioritize. But coming as an undergrad, no, I didn't know those things. No, I wasn't aware. And to be honest, the one thing that I wanted to do was to run away from Islam, because it seemed to be the only thing that caused people to judge me. I already was low achieving. And then on top of that, I'm being disrespected and disregarded because I'm Muslim. And then on top of that, I'm Black. It was like you wanted to go and run under a rock.
Absolutely. You mentioned a very key point, Dr. Muhammad, about comparison. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was very clear and about individuality. And even when you study the Sirah and you look at Abu Bakr radiallahu an and Umar radiallahu an, they had two opposite personality. One was very calm and very quiet, who was Abu Bakr, and Umar was very, he's already ready to on the move. And if you notice even in the Sirah, the Prophet never ever looked to change their personality. He want Abu Bakr to be Abu Bakr and Umar to be Umar. And so this is a very key point that you have mentioned about individuality and to maintain your individuality within the sphere of Islam.
Right, right, right. And that's where the difficulty comes. That's where the difficulty comes, because you look at the traditions of those individuals that are around you, and that's the wrong place to look. It is always best to look within. And as you grow and as you learn, and even I would say as you make mistakes, it gives you an opportunity to ask for forgiveness and to be able to do it better the next time around. And so sometimes we don't make the best decisions, but to continue to do that is where the fault comes in. To identify and reconfigure and restart is the better plan forward.
Well said. The thing is that, with parents, all of us, the parents who are listening and viewing this program, and as you pointed out, that look, kids will make mistakes. I mean, mistakes will be made. We are not created by Allah that we will be perfect in this dunya. There will always be mishap. There will be situations that we will mess up, and then we rush towards Allah for forgiveness. And this is the reality of life, of where it shows our humanness and the weakness. So the thing is that as parents, I want you to touch on that. As parents, we need to give our kids also the opportunity to grow. They will make their mistakes and they will learn from their mistakes. And this is the process of life itself, and attaining a stage of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes, absolutely. When I think about parents, being a young parent myself, my views now are very different than they were when I was a youngster. And, engaging with my mother and engaging with my father, I felt that, you don't have any freedom at all. And one thing that I can say as being a university instructor, I get to see the children and who they want to be outside of their parents' guise. And oftentimes those individuals that you don't allow the ability to grow, they don't even have the wherewithal to be able to survive in those environments with so many choices. It is important that individuals are able to make choices, that they are held accountable for their actions. There's not going to always be an individual there to guide them and tell them. And specifically in college, where, parents call me all the time and they want to know how their children are doing in classes. By law, that is information that you cannot share. The child has to make those decisions. And if they are faring well in a class, or if not, that isn't information that parents have. And so I think it is important for individuals to be able to have that sense of freedom, specifically our Muslim sisters. Oftentimes the Muslim brothers, they have an opportunity to go and to engage. And oftentimes it's the Muslim sisters that are held so close with this guide and gauge, and they don't have the freedom to be able to make decisions. And a lot of the times it's not that they're looking to make negative decisions. Oftentimes that individuality, those leadership capabilities, that comes from the opportunity to lead, to make decisions and to move forward. Oftentimes parents look at it as a sense of disregard or disrespect. And if you give the child an inch, they say that they'll take a mile. And that's not the case for all children. Practice, we know, is what makes perfect. And that's what also builds character. So we know what we've embedded in our children, and it's incumbent that we step back at times or step to the side and allow them to show us what we have placed in them. We know that, when parents are no longer here and children are, it is their prayers that will lead their parents to Jannah, inshallah. And so we have to make sure that we're not only equipping them with that, but giving them the opportunity to survive this life without us, because we know that all of us are here for just a point in time and it doesn't last forever. And so during that time, you would want to see the ways in which you have raised your children flourish so that they can understand what they've been given. When you hold on so tight, many children don't understand even who they are and what they have. They become you. They become an extension of the parent, and therefore there is no individuality that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And so you have to allow that for the children. You have to allow it for the young youth, and also understand that there will be times where a decision may be different than a decision that the parent may make. But that's where the dialogue and conversation comes in. You don't let the child go and just leave them, but you allow it to be a back and forth where they go into the community, they engage in activities within the confines of Islam. They come back, they speak to you, you tell them stories about your upbringing and different stories connected to the Quran, and then they go back out, and it becomes this kind of back and forth where they're learning about the realities of life, because it is brutal. It is brutal.
Very, very good. Actually, you mentioned a very important point that I just want for us to stay a little, maybe a minute or two on. Now that you have your own family, you're married and you have your own family. When you were going to college, you were solo, and I'm so happy to hear you saying that your mother used to drive you to college, and this is an example of how parents can really help their kids. If you know what you know now, right? What you would have done differently as a child in college to your parents, because a lot of times our kids are not able to come to realization until they themselves have a family. So what is your take on this, if you know what you know now?
This is such a good question, brother. Alhamdulillah. I lost my mom in junior year in undergrad in college.
And
for me, when I think on this question, and I could give advice to individuals, your parents are experts. The parents are not the enemy. When they say things, it's kind of like your skin is so thin because you're new to life, you're new to the world, and you just know that you know everything. Nobody can tell you that you don't know, and getting to know your parents. Oh man, you gotta get to know the parents, sit down and talk to them when things are good, when things are bad, when things are indifferent, picking their brain in the sense of asking them stories about when you were young, what did you do? How did you enjoy? How was Islam when you were younger? Because, all of the history that happens in our life, it's totally, being a parent now during Black Lives Matter is different than being a parent during September 11th. And that's different than being a parent, Muslim parent during the 80s, during all of these different movements. And so to be able to ask them questions that are not even connected to anything that you need from them, and getting to understand the true essence of the cloth that you are built from. When I tell you, there is no more bliss in that than anything, to sit down and have a conversation. For me, oftentimes I would go and I would sit, down with my father and just ask him question after question. It came to a point where we would just be on the telephone and he would say, "What do you want to know next? What's the next question?" And it wasn't an issue. I wasn't going through anything. It wasn't a hardship. It was just a conversation. And sometimes he would call me and just listen to me talk for about an hour. And, that didn't happen until I was older. When I was younger, I did not realize that all that I was experiencing, my parents had a story connected to that as well. And they are a resource in a way that can provide you guidance that's connected to who you are, because they're part of you.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing, we have a few minutes more. I wish we had more time, but I'm sure, inshallah, we will try to have you another time. What is the common thing that you see? I mean, I know you have traveled quite a bit, to many parts of the world, and you were doing some work. What is a common thing that you see that exists elsewhere, also exists here, and it's affecting our kids? What's the common thing that you see?
That the children's voices are muzzled, that individuals across the world, across the nation feel that children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
And this is an issue. It's a major issue because it leads to frustration and anger and acting out. And because my work is in crime and criminality and criminal injustices, that plays a huge part when individuals feel like they have to fight in order to be heard, as opposed to talking. And so when we force our children to be seen and not heard, we contribute to the acting out. We contribute to them being frustrated and making things up and not being able to ask questions and get answers. This is across the nation, that children are often used for their hands as opposed to their minds. So they're used to go take this out, go clean this up, go carry that. You do, and it's only to administer a decision to say you do this or you do that, pointing them kind of in the direction, which doesn't give them the opportunity to use their brains, you know. Yeah. And this is something that the brain is a large muscle. We know that, you know, it has to be used in order to be utilized. And when you don't use it, you lose brain mass and brain muscle. And so as parents across the nation, individuals are contributing to the ignorance and the miseducation of a population that is so quick. If you could pick up social media and use that to make $1 million, the richest individuals off of social media are 12 years old and younger. You can't tell me that these are individuals that should be heard. On the college campuses, our youngest students are 13 and 14, getting accepted to all the top universities. You can't tell me that these individuals should be seen and not heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So in other words, we should extend more trust to our young people.
Yes.
They should be trusted much more than we are trusting them now.
Yes. Yes, we should trust them.
I've been listening to you, Bahia. I know you're very passionate of, you know, the things that you believe in and the things that you do. What is really that driving force in you that that helps you to excel in this way? What is that driving force?
The number one driving force is Jinnah. You know, I no longer have my mother. I no longer have my father with me most recently with his passing. And for me, I want to do as much as I can and give back as much as I can so that we can be reunited in Jannah. When I go into prisons, this is what's in the back of my mind. When I work with children, this is what's in the back of my mind. Second to that would be the children. There's something just inside of me that is, you know, open as it relates to their gift, their assets, and how they're still connected to divine intervention. And so I really am so passionate about everything I do because of the kids that I've engaged with and how they're so worthy of many of the things we can't even see. And so I do want to work as hard as I can to make this world, you know, a better place, and teaching so that my students continue to do good in this life that then will elevate me in the hereafter. And so for me, it is all about the afterlife. It is all about Jannah, and really deep down, almost could care less about anything else, but being reconnected where it really matters, because we know this is only a moment of time.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair. You know, for those of you who are listening, we are here with our guest, Dr. Bahia Muhammad, Associate Professor of Criminology in the Department of Sociology at Howard University. I'm so happy to have you, Dr. Bahia, but our time is up. But inshallah, I will try to engage you because I know we can do much more things together, inshallah. So, but just before you go, as all my guests, I have a round of rapid questions for them, and I want to see how you will do with this. What is one of the things that you would put on your bucket list?
Scuba diving.
If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
Mozambique. I want to scuba dive off the coast of Mozambique. It's the tip of South Africa, and I've just seen so many movies on it, and I want to see the animal life there.
MashaAllah. What's your favorite food?
Pizza. Pizza.
What's your hobby?
Cooking and roller skating.
Are you a morning or night person?
Night person.
What is the strangest thing you have ever eaten?
Oh, the strangest thing I've ever eaten? Eel.
Really?
Eel.
What is your favorite summer activity?
Oh, my favorite summer activity? Swimming.
If you could get yourself anything, what would you get?
Oh, I would get a lifelong buddy pass so that I could jump on a plane whenever and go wherever I want to go.
MashaAllah. What is one thing that annoys you the most? And that's my final question.
When individuals scratch the chalkboard we have old chalkboards in our buildings, and that scratching noise, it's so annoying. Oh,
Mashallah, mashallah. I think you did very well on your rapid round.
those were
Mashallah.
good questions. I like those.
I will give you a score of 10 over 10.
Oh, mashallah. Wow. Okay.
All right, Bahia, Dr. Bahia, it was a pleasure having you. Really,
Yeah.
I think your thoughts and your experience, sharing your experience with our young kids and family has been really, really good. May Allah bless you. May Allah bless you and your family. May Allah bless your kids also. And inshallah, we'll try again sometime to engage you. And until then, to all our brothers and sisters or viewers, may Allah bless you. May Allah protect all our mothers and fathers who are working very hard for their kids. And kids, know that your parents are your friends. They are not your enemies. Try to befriend them and try to have conversation with them. Inshallah. And as Dr. Bahia pointed out, as you grow and you have your family, then there is a lot of realization that comes by, inshallah. May Allah bless and protect all our mothers and fathers, and mothers 3 times over fathers, mothers, then fathers.
Yes, Ameen.
So until we reach again, Assalamu alaikum
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.